What happens when a kind gorilla encounters a ruthless python and jealous lions? You won't believe how this battle for survival turned the savannah's notions of strength and unity upside down. What happened next left the whole world speechless. You ever find yourself in a situation where doing the right thing feels like a bad joke? That was Cairo's morning. The African savannah isn't exactly a five-star resort. It's raw, relentless, and downright unforgiving. But there, amid the dust and cracked earth, a big-hearted gorilla was about to learn that kindness can be its own worst enemy. Cairo was built like a mountain, muscles rippling under dark fur, but he had this soft spot that got him in trouble. This morning he noticed a giant python, a real heavyweight of a snake, caught up in a thorn bush, struggling like it was giving up on life. Most gorillas would have turned tail and kept it moving. Not Cairo. No, he saw a creature in pain, and his stubborn heart refused to look away. So, what does a giant gorilla do? He gets down on his knees, teeth gritted, and starts peeling away thorns one by one. Other gorillas watched, shaking their heads like, "This guy's lost it." But Cairo was determined. When the python finally slid free, it let out a hiss, something between a warning and a thank you, if you could call it that. That hiss should have been the last thing Cairo heard. Instead, it was just the start. Because right then, out of nowhere, a pride of lions emerged. Led by Koba, a lion whose face was a road map of scars and grudges, these cats had long been twitchy about the gorillas encroaching on their turf. Seeing Cairo mess with a snake? That was the last straw. Koba's eyes burned with a mix of suspicion and anger. Before Cairo could react, the python struck. Coiling with terrifying speed, it wrapped around Cairo's massive frame like a vice. Every breath became a battle, every second a fight against the crushing grip that could end it all. The pain was sharp, the fear blinding, but somewhere in that darkness, Cairo's will to survive flared. Then something wild happened. The lions, instead of attacking Cairo, charged at the python. It was chaos, roaring lions clashing with hissing python, a fight neither wanted but both had to endure. The ground trembled under the battle, a savage soundtrack to Cairo's struggle. In that moment, Cairo's mind was a storm. Why me? Why now? But also a stubborn ember of hope that refused to be snuffed out. Here was kindness tangled with danger, mercy wrapped in pain, and a reminder that sometimes doing good in this world puts a target right on your back. Nature doesn't care about heroes, but Cairo wasn't about to quit. What happened next changed everything. You do not want to miss how this all spiraled into something far bigger. If you thought the first mess was bad, buckle up, because things just got a whole lot uglier. Cairo, barely catching his breath from the python's chokehold and the lion's chaotic rescue, was staring down a new kind of beast, the bitter pride led by Koba. That old lion wasn't just mad. He was determined to make Cairo pay. For the snakes, for the intrusion, for daring to have a heart. Word spread fast, not through tweets or hashtags, but through low growls and wary glances. Koba spun a web of fear and suspicion, painting Cairo and his gorillas as dangerous troublemakers, wild animals with no place in what the lions claimed was their kingdom. It wasn't just territorial posturing, it was a full-on smear campaign that even humans in nearby villages caught wind of. Suddenly, Cairo's clan wasn't just under threat from nature. They were targets of hatred fueled by fear and old grudges. And if that wasn't enough, the humans showed up, armed with cameras and opinions, ready to turn tragedy into spectacle. Thomas, the wildlife filmmaker, tried to shine a light on the gorilla's side of the story. His footage was raw, honest, and full of the quiet moments of kindness Cairo's clan offered the savannah. But the internet's a wild place, half cheered, half jeered, and somewhere in the chaos, hunters and poachers smelled blood, the worst kind of vultures, circling for a profit, ready to tear down whatever fragile piece was left. Back in the savannah, the tension was a powder keg. Koba's pride ramped up the intimidation, harassing young gorillas, blocking access to watering holes, and hunting in ways that were less about survival and more about dominance. The once peaceful forest edge had turned into a battleground, and Cairo was caught right in the middle, wrestling with rage and fear. The old wisdom whispered in his mind, "Survive, but don't lose yourself." Easier said than done. Enter Zara, a young lioness with eyes sharp enough to cut through Koba's anger. Unlike her kin, Zara saw the bigger picture. She'd watched Cairo's gentle care, felt the pulse of community in his clan, and quietly began crossing invisible lines, sharing food, warning gorillas of danger, standing up to Koba when his rage spilled over. Her small acts of rebellion were sparks in a tinderbox. One evening, Cairo caught her leaving a stash of fruit for the gorillas. "You're playing a dangerous game," he growled, but there was no judgment in his voice. Just tired acknowledgement. "Why?" he asked. Zara looked him straight in the eyes and said, "Because fear is the easiest thing to spread, but it's not the only way." Meanwhile, the humans kept filming, but their presence was a double-edged sword. Thomas's documentary was stirring public support, yes, but also drawing more attention from those who wanted to exploit the turmoil. For Cairo, the weight of the world was crushing, and every day felt like a test. How much more injustice could one gorilla endure before the fight wasn't just about survival, but revenge? The lines between predator and protector blurred, and in the heart of the savannah, Cairo's battle was no longer just against the python or lions. It was against a system stacked to crush anyone who dared show kindness. This is the tipping point. The pressure's building, the alliances are shaky, and the next move could change everything. You're about to see the fiercest fight of all. When the stakes are life and death, grudges tend to melt faster than ice in the savannah sun. The day the giant python returned wasn't just another chapter, it was the showdown that none of us saw coming but all of us needed. Cairo was resting, muscles still sore from previous battles, when a sudden chilling hiss cut through the dry air. The python, no longer the weakling from before but a monstrous force of nature, slithered silently toward a vulnerable target. One of Koba's youngest lion cubs, caught alone near the waterhole. The cub's terrified cries echoed, shattering the fragile truce. Instinct kicked in. Cairo's roar shattered the tension, echoing like thunder as he charged, not to save his own, but the future of the pride that had once hunted his clan. The lions followed, led by Zara, whose sharp eyes never missed a beat. What happened next was a raw, fierce collaboration that rewrote the rules of the wild. Together, lions and gorillas launched a brutal assault against the python. Fangs and claws met scales and strength in a battle that was as much about survival as it was about breaking down barriers. You could feel the earth tremble with each clash, the raw power of nature unleashed. For Cairo, the fight was personal, but also symbolic. The unity forged in that chaotic moment was a rebuke to the fear and hate that had poisoned the savannah. The python was driven back, wounded and humiliated, forced to retreat into the shadows. After the dust settled, something remarkable happened. Koba, once a symbol of rage and distrust, approached Cairo. The scars on his face softened as he spoke words that surprised everyone. "Maybe strength isn't just about teeth and claws." Zara's quiet rebellion had sparked a change in the pride's heart, and Cairo's relentless spirit had shown that even in the harshest wilderness, empathy could prevail. Meanwhile, Thomas's documentary reached millions, sparking a wave of awareness and support. The humans watching were forced to confront their own role in the cycle of fear and exploitation. For once, the story wasn't about domination. It was about respect. The savannah began to breathe easier, its inhabitants learning that survival was no longer a solo act, but a collective dance. Cairo found peace not in victory alone, but in the hard-earned respect between unlikely allies. This was more than a battle. It was a lesson carved in flesh and spirit. That sometimes the most terrifying thing isn't the enemy at your throat, but the walls you build around your heart. This is the climax you've been waiting for. The moment where everything shifts and the hero's roar echoes louder than ever. Stay with us to see how Cairo rewrote the rules of the wild and why it matters for all of us.